know. Okay, all right.
Okay, so here we are. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to 20Q, 20 Questions with Interesting People. I am your host, the very handsome Tim Kirk, and our guest this episode is Garrett Vorbeck.
Hello.
How are you doing, Garrett? I'm
doing all right. I've had a drink. I'm reasonably loosened up.
Okay, so now that you're reasonably loosened up, I'm going to start asking you questions about yourself.
Great. I can't wait to spend this. Usually when I'm talking to you, it's an opportunity for me to just be quiet because you'll just hijack the conversation. So I'm not sure how well I'm going to do.
I'm kind of intrigued as to see how well this will go with me keeping my mouth shut for as long
we can always edit you out.
That would be probably a good solution. So anyway, our first question is I ask everybody the same thing. Every single person who I speak to, I ask the same 10 questions.
Okay.
And they get to choose another 10 questions that I ask them.
Great.
But I ask the same 10 questions to everybody. And I always start with a bit about your background, where you're originally from, and what was it like?
Okay. My background, where I'm from, I grew up in Tampa Bay, Florida. And when I was 22, I decided to see the world, and I moved up to New York. And it has been a very demonic experience. I've just been battling the forces of evil every day. This socialist society that I've found myself in, it's terrifying every waking moment.
It's something to look forward to.
Every day is a new misadventure. Yes,
that's the story of my life, and all I got to do is learn how to say I'm sorry, and it made it a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Is that the trick? Okay.
It made it a little bit better.
That'll be my new thing.
Made it a little bit not as bad, I guess. That was for me.
No, my background, I think I met you through NBC. We worked together for 9 long years. And you kind of gave me my introduction to the city.
Well, that's kind of very flattering. I do remember you drew a picture of something with tentacles.
What?
Yeah, you drew something with tentacles. It was very funny. You said something in the spur of the moment when like the second day I met you.
Okay.
And you were saying something, and you raised your eyes and you said tentacles like this.
What
like
the
this.
fuck?
And I remember you doing it, and it was very funny. And then you did a drawing based on that, and you showed me, and it was still very funny.
Oh,
and I remember that. Yes, I remember that. And that was in 2006.
Okay. I must have been like describing some sort of sex dream.
I'm not going to qualify that.
No, I remember the first time I met you was your first day at NBC. And I had been there for like 2 weeks or something. And you showed up, and on your first day, you were wearing overalls, denim overalls.
Yes, I was.
And like a plaid button-up shirt. And I remember looking at you, and I had all these preconceived notions about what it's like to be in New York City, as I'd been in the city for just 3 or 4 months. And I remember looking at you and being like, what turnip truck did this guy just fall off of? Who is this clown? He looks more rural than me.
That's just great.
Yeah. That was my first impression. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
And who did I turn out to be?
Oh, you turned out to be one of my closest friends. One of my people that I go to for. I think you've been there for a couple of breakdowns. I think that you've been there for quite a few growing experiences. You're like my New York father.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. Wow, man, that's a lot. You're the second person who's told me I've had either fatherly or grandfatherly figure in their life, and
I wouldn't put you at grandfather.
Well, one guy, I was thanks. He told me. So anyway, let's go to question number 2.
Okay.
What was the life experience that had the greatest impact on you?
I mean, that's a huge question to ask somebody. But I feel like probably moving to the city, because I grew up in a very religious, very conservative home where I was very naive about the world, and I show up here in this city, and I'm just completely blown away by the variety of human experiences and the sheer amount of options and who's doing what, and I can do this now, and I think that if I hadn't moved, if I had stayed in Clearwater, Florida, with all the manatees and Scientologists, I'd be a very different person. So, yeah, the move to New York is probably the what did you say, the greatest impact, the life experience of the greatest impact, and of course this impact is ongoing. Like I've lived in the city for 12 years now, and I'm counting the time I spent in Jersey City.
You were a New Yorker.
Yeah. I spend more time in the. Yeah, okay, great. I get a pass.
Lots of people fudge it anyway, so don't worry about it. As time goes by, you're a New Yorker.
I've already hit the 10 mark in the city.
If you've ever stood on the street and yelled at a siren, you're a New Yorker.
Well, everybody's got a different definition of what it is to be a New Yorker, whether it's time elapsed or a certain.
But if you allow yourself to be something that other people would shrivel away from, because you've been so hardened, or the experience has made you emboldened or strengthened you to stand up to something just for your own sake, whether or not it has any impact. It's like yelling at a wall. But if you've just done that, you've become that. It's part like you don't have to worry about that discretion anymore, or you're just so weary that you have to react a way to keep your sanity, or it's just something that you just intrinsically, reflexively do because you live here.
I think the ability to just not see things that you're choosing not to see, like the person handing you whatever garbage they're trying to hand out to everybody, whether it's the person that's just having a meltdown right there. I think the ability to have selective vision and not just like ogle every incident that's happening around you, I think that's my most, like, I'm proud to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's also something you have to learn, because my dad's 95th birthday party is this weekend. And one of the things he did for us when he would take us in the city is he always made sure we got out of the way.
Yes!
Right? Because the last thing you want to do is be in the path of anybody who is sleazy, slimy, gross, crazy, con artist, theft, violent. Do you really want to just get out of the way? And if they're going to do something, they'll take somebody else that at least it won't be you. I mean, if you just have for self-preservation, just get out of the way.
Because how many of those experiences are you going to have in the day? Like 10.
Yeah. And also, they may smell bad. And they're stinking on you. Like, oh my God, now I go someplace, they're going to be really self-conscious. And you're going to be emotionally upheaval. There's a certain amount of emotional upheaval when you have that confrontation with a total stranger who flares up at you, and you don't even have any idea why. Do you need this in your life? No. It's just my dad taught us that when we were little kids. We always got out of the way. Mm-hmm. So that was one of those things about living here, that you're a New Yorker because you do that. You're not looking at everything like a gog and trying to take it all and try to make, like, you excluded so much information because it's consistent. Uh-huh. So you do that, and now you focus on just what you need to do because that's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill I'm proud to have, and I mean, to further cement the idea, the spirit of the question. Being in New York, it's something that if you go home, every family member is like, "Oh, how are things in the big city?" Listen to that razzmatazz music. It's something that's continually marvelous to other people.
I'll say that.
And while as it might be mundane for me at this point,
but
it continues to move other people.
I completely agree. I've been on a number of cruises where people disbelieve that I actually lived in New York until I said, no. Many people say New York, but...
Who the fuck is doubting that you, Tim Kirk, are a product of New York?
When people disbelieve me and they want me to prove that I'm a New Yorker or to say something that would convince them, I'm kind of amused. So, okay, so we have to go on to the next question. Okay, now what would you say to someone who was interested in an aspect of your experience? Meaning, if somebody wanted to explore an idea or prospective opportunity based on what you can tell them, what would be the main thing you would say to encourage or discourage them? Like, being a musician, had your shot with the TV and the band ran away on you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You did all this thing. You've been in lots of bands. You've toured, or you do other stuff. You've got so many interests.
Yeah, I've definitely had my shake with the music industry and doing things solo, doing things with a group and a band, and that's all super exciting. I never really got to places where I could have really spicy anecdotes and drop names, but I find myself more and more these days when I'm talking about my experiences. I'm talking to younger people, and I'm just encouraging them to. I encourage people to learn how to code, because in the year of our Lord 2018, if you know some code, people are just going to throw money at you. So when I'm talking to younger people and they're just like, I don't know, what am I going to do? It'll all figure itself out. I'm like, hey, why don't you go figure out how to make a website? Yeah. Just do it. And it's through bands that I learned how to do that. Everyone was like, we're never going to get famous and tour with whatever band. Yes. We're never going to tour with these guys unless we have a website. And it always fell on me, for some reason, to make the website. And I never knew that. So bands fell away, or they didn't totally fall away. They gradually became less and less important, and coding and writing code became the main force in my life. But it really depends on the aspect. This is a question that it really depends on the situation where I'm talking to someone when I want to talk to them about my different experiences. I always encourage people to strike out on their own. I just had a brother who finally left Florida and he moved to North Carolina. And I already have another brother living up there, but it's a chance to get out of that environment of, just the place you grew up, the people you knew forever, the opportunities that are just there and are never going to change, and getting out there and finally making a life for yourself, somewhere where you can't just rely on your old support structure. So yeah, it really depends on the context. I've talked to you about, I'll encourage people with coding. I'll encourage people to move away and start a new life for themselves. And with music, well, music's just a fucking shit show, and nobody should ever get involved with it.
Well, I can always say that when it comes to music and you, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with my entire life in restaurants and banks and all these different companies, and including NBC, and you hear somebody say something about my band, and the hackles in the back of your neck go up. You're like, oh God, are you a DJ? Are you have an art show? Do you sell something Etsy? I mean,
they're going to invite you to the shows.
Oh no! Oh yes, you are, aren't you? Yeah. And you have to say, this is great. This is going to be right here. I'm going to be doing this. Everyone's going to come. And then if you take a deep breath, and I 'cause so many people say this, and then I heard a recording of you playing the guitar and singing. And you composed. And I was shocked at how close-minded I was, because you're gifted. You're quite talented.
Well, thank you.
And I will say that it's not like I'm saying this because I don't think I've ever told you this before, but yes, you actually are quite proficient, and you're skilled at doing what you're doing, and you have the gift of talent, which means you have a gift. You can actually compose and sing.
That. I haven't really done much with it in a while, but I find myself these days, I'm on the other side of the experience where I am dating a musician, and my girlfriend Krishanti is of the couple is the performer, and I'm the audience member. I'm the fanboy. And I've, instead of being the person on the stage, I'm the person that this is standing in the audience. I've kind of taken a hiatus I was in a band a couple of years ago, very hipster, very Brooklyn-esque type sound, and we were 8 people.
8?
Yeah, trying to find a venue in New York City that can accommodate 8 people on a stage at one time. And so you're boxed into this like 1 by 1 square foot area on the stage, and you're supposed to look like you're having a great time. It's been a couple of years. I would love to, at some point, do something else with that, but I'm old now. I'm decrepit, and I'm not going to be lighting up the charts. But I would love to get back in there. But right now, I'm having fun in the audience.
Well, that's great. The experience of all that stuff is something you're saying, something that's so constant the entire time, and it's not because it sounds so fody-doty when you tell people, but and you can't phrase it. But you're telling people to do things that are actually it takes a great amount of skill, but there's also a tremendous amount of consistency and practicality to what you're telling people.
How so?
Well, you're telling people learn how to code so you can make a living.
Yeah.
Well, you have to sit down. You have to be focused. You have to be disciplined, and you have to apply to it. You can't be haphazard about it. You have to actually work at it and do it all the time, and to constantly try to get better.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
So that's you have to be very practical to do that. You have to be dedicated. You may not be practical in terms of you may be absent-minded or a silly goose or something, but you do have to think of things in real terms, and you have to apply yourself, and you have to, and there's a metric for everything. And a lot of people don't want to ever be subjected to that.
Yeah, I am relying on a level of enjoyment out of these experiences. If somebody sits down and it's like, okay, today I'm going to learn JavaScript, and they hate it, they're not going to learn JavaScript. No. They're never going to do it. And so when I'm giving this advice, I'm like, hopefully understood between the lines is, give it a shot. See if it's something that you enjoy doing, because you can earn a living doing this. And so, yeah, if I'm just hoping that, like with moving away, if you're tied to your family, you're not going to move away. You're not going to enjoy being far away from people. Yeah. If you're not a musical person, you're not going to enjoy playing an instrument.
Okay, so here's the thing I was telling Bruce about this. Because it's a fallacy and a fantasy of the white people. It dispenses with issues very quickly and easily with them. It's a vanity concept. Is the concept of making everybody coding, right? Yeah. So it's like you're an at-risk youth. Teach them coding. You're coming out of prison. Oh, he's coming out of prison. Teach him coding. You live in a depressed area and there's no jobs. The factory's shut down. Teach him coding. This is a fallacy that a lot of white people want to indulge themselves. It makes themselves feel better, and it just whitewashes over them. They don't have any guilt about it. But it's as I said to have conversations with Bruce. I said, it's like being an actor. It's like being a cook. You either got it or you don't. You can learn it. You can do it, and you can do it well.
Yeah.
But the people who do it, they take to it. It's like learning how to swim. Like some people, they sink like a rock. Other people can get through it, but some people, boy, they're great stars.
Oh yeah, and I've gotten a chance in my professional career to work alongside of some really amazingly intelligent folks who know this stuff on an intimate level, and they eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. I can hold my own. I would even go so far as to say I'm pretty good at this stuff. But you have to take to it. And it's not some societal fix where everybody who's been released from a dying industry or is not professionally desirable, you can't just throw all these people into a coding meat grinder and turn out a new economy. It does rely on a certain level of enjoyment. And I always think of it, growing up as a little kid, I loved Legos. And I would just go and get the biggest, most complicated Lego set, and I'd sit there and I'd pore over every page until I had built this thing. And I loved every moment of it. And so much so that I kind of didn't enjoy the final product. I would always find ways to, oh no, it broke or it crashed or there was an explosion, and just to get back to that moment of building. Yeah, something had to go wrong so I could get back to that moment of building, and I think that's the same thriller.
So moving on to the next question.
Yes.
Your most noteworthy achievement.
Okay, so I have been peeking ahead at these questions and thinking while we've been talking so that I can have something rather than like long stretches of silence that you need to cut out. My most noteworthy achievement, and I'm sure I'll get home and I'll be like, God damn it, that's what I should have said. But I think my most noteworthy achievement is just being okay. Like, I mean, I'm going through life as a straight white man, so there is a level of privilege that is just automatically conferred upon me. So being okay is relative to everybody's experience. But I gave up my faith, I gave up my politics, I gave up the part of the country I was living in. I moved up here I followed a woman up here I was dating in high school, and that it didn't work out shortly thereafter. But so I was in this city where I have no family, I knew nobody, and then the 2008 crisis hits and people are dropping like flies, and I'm somehow through all of that I don't need to rely on anyone. I'm not up to my eyeballs in debt. I'm okay, and that's so much more than what so many people can say for themselves. Mm-hmm. Well, so many of us are just hanging on by our fingernails, and one bad turn and you are wrecked forever, and nobody's gonna care at all.
That's the thing, is you have to keep yourself so connected and so busy all the time, so you can try to pick right back up again. Because if you just fall away, you just fall between the cracks.
It's a rat race.
And it's just like you just evaporate and corrode and disintegrate, and the dust, and no one goes, who, what was your name again?
And I'm going to keep returning to this weird romantic stereotype of New York, but they say, like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And me being okay in New York, I feel like a goddamn superhero.
Yeah.
So I think my most noteworthy achievement is being okay. I'm all right, and I don't know how many people can say that.
So it's sort of like, it sounds like a continuum to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, talk to me next week, and we'll see where I'm at on that. But you know,
good. That's good.
Oh, but I will get home and be like, well, I should have talked about the time that I ran across the United States barefoot, and but we'll
talk about all the people we talked about before we started recording.
In part 2.
So moving on to the next question, the biggest personal challenge you have faced. Personal injury, a seemingly overwhelming task, a personal professional goal, a difficult situation you had to overcome.
God, I'm such a spoiled baby. The adversity in my life.
But what you consider the challenge? What did you rose to? You could not have gotten to be here, to work where you work, to do what you do, without seeing something as a challenge that was the biggest one, the one that you rose to. Because the challenges that you rise to, those are the ones that define you. You know. Also, you're defined by just being a failure, being a disappointment. But I mean, when you do stuff, people go, "Wow, you can," and I'll know you can do that. You know.
I mean, this may turn into just spreading out what I said for the last question of being okay. I mean, we both worked together for 9 years, and our jobs slowly became less and less enjoyable, and it became more and more difficult to just maintain some sort of status quo. And in the last couple of years, we were kind of jerked around a lot as to where we stood, what was expected of us, what was needed. And I felt like I got a lot of conflicting information, and I used that job for 9 years as kind of a security blanket, and the idea that it wouldn't always be there was just something I wasn't really prepared emotionally to handle. This may be a shift in another version of answering this question, but no, I don't want to talk about that. I think I'm trying to come up with some. Can we have the question pulled up?
Sure.
So I can always see that.
Where is it? Come on, you. Hey. Oh, okay. The next one is the biggest personal challenge have you faced?
I think to get real, I think that losing my faith was a very big personal challenge. It was something that defined just about every aspect of family, just every aspect of how you relate to the world and how you see yourself in that world, the preconceived notions you have about the groups that your faith system maligns, the ideas of what is and is not good and right. I mean, if you are willing to take the step of losing that, all of those things go out the window, and you're suddenly adrift without any of those landmarks and touchstones that you've built up. And it's terrifying, because you have to come to a moment where you level with yourself and you admit that everything I know is wrong. I don't know anything. And what does that mean? And where am I going to land when I do finally land? And I did a lot of reading, a lot of quote-unquote soul searching. I did a lot of I did therapy, and I would say moving beyond the faith system, the fundamentalist Christian perspective that I was raised in, losing that was terrifying, and coming to terms with it, having my family come to terms with it, it didn't seem, I didn't understand the monumental task that I was taking on in that moment when I turned my back on that. But once I had come to the other side, and you look at the idea, because we all walk around with this idea of who we are, whatever fiction we're selling ourselves on.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And you look back on the idea of who you were a couple of years ago, or who you thought you were, and then square that with the person that you believe yourself to be now, and it's night and day.
Sounds very much like the struggle a lot of people do with personal identity when they realize they are identifying themselves as someone who is, especially my age, my generation, someone who is a pariah, or someone who's pushed to the fringes of society, and any type of prestige or dignity and respect you were afforded just because you were, that left you, that was vacated. And in terms of ethics and how you relate to the world, I felt as if I was staring into a chasm, the abyss, because they didn't know. Like, well, you have to have your own sense of, you have to come to your own sensibilities about what's right and wrong, and how you're going to go through life, because you can't expect someone else to make the rules that, especially the rules tell you can't be who you are. And you're like,
sure.
A long time ago.
I assume you are kind of relating to your experience of coming out.
Yes.
And becoming a publicly gay man in this world, a boomer, and we can talk hours of shit about boomers, But
I'm at the tail end.
yeah. Okay, is that your comfort?
That's what I kid myself.
Yeah, I'm almost a Gen Xer.
Yeah,
I don't know these guys.
The struggle was more personal for me to be able to be a reasonable adult, to stand there, because I wanted to have an adult life, and I wanted to be a rational, reasonable adult. And I didn't want to be somebody who lived internally of just emotional reactions, or you follow just whatever urge, desire. That's no way to identify yourself, even though that's fine for everyone, because everyone has that. But that can't override being capable and living in the real world. Mm-hmm. So I was so frightened and terrified at the idea that if you just don't identify a certain way, nothing will take its place. And it turned out that nothing does take its place unless you already have some ideas and you really want to start working that way. But you have to build that structure yourself. You have to forge your own path, even inside of yourself, before you go out in the world and do anything. I think while you're doing it, but it's a lot of hard work, and you can see why I can see why people stay closeted. Even though I personally I think it's a boon to just let go of that, and when you do, it's great. But the identity issues that you have.
Oh yeah.
That is something that you have to reckon with, and you have to deal with that all the time. Otherwise, you'll never move on. And you can be so trapped in something that's just it's just convenient. It may not even be comfortable, but it's something you don't want to give up.
Oh yeah, I've heard this story from many friends who have come out over the years, and the idea of assuming a new persona. A persona that you may have been keeping locked away from public view, but it's this idea of realizing a new version of yourself that can be. You have to destroy that old version. Pretty much. And it's terrifying to destroy your current standing idea of who you are.
You actually obliterate who you are.
Yeah.
But still, a lot of people don't want you to do that.
You yourself don't want it. It's terrifying to do.
Uh-huh. And you get the comfort and the sucker from just staying the same, or being something that doesn't challenge other people. I'm taking a little too personally, but to say that you don't challenge other people, because they just need to put you someplace mentally where it's like they're convenient and they're comfortable, and it's easy for them.
If I keep saying these things, if I keep going to this ceremony, if I keep acting in this way, surely everything will be okay eventually.
Something will work out. There will be some sort of divine interference or influence.
Yes.
It'll save me. It'll raise everything up. People will see it. They'll see the light. No, they won't. Nothing will ever happen. You have to just look at life like life is cold and cruel, and it's your job to not be.
Rip that Band-Aid off.
But you can't be a bad person just because you're getting something that you wanted, or you have to be a grown-up about it. When you're a gay man, one of the things you have to do is be someone who's worth talking to, not someone who's just because they're gay. That's like saying you're white and you're male. That says nothing. You have to actually forge your own path and make who you are. And that the identity sounds similar. You're caught with an ethics trap. A lot of people, they don't have a backup plan. They never thought or considered what will replace this rote belief system that I subscribed to for such a long time. When you let go of that, you don't go into free fall. You can, but it's really not going to help you. So and there's always some example people can point to, but by and large, for most people, you really have to come to grips with how you're going to behave.
Sure.
And what are you going to do? What's your conduct going to be? What's your thought going to be? Who are you going to listen to? How are you going to speak? And what are you going to be interested in? What are you going to focus on? All these things on top of what do you think is practically right and wrong in every situation, and it may or may not go with a belief system that you subscribe to.
Sure, and I'm not trying to malign that whatever faith system people are walking around with. If it gives them comfort and they're not hurting anybody, I don't own enough deodorant to worry about that.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's when you come to terms with it yourself, and you're like, I can't live this way. I can't be this fictionalized version of myself any longer.
That's like a moment of truth to me.
Yes.
Right? You realized.
And we all know people that have eschewed their preconceived persona and just never found themselves, and they're constantly adrift.
That's what you have to avoid.
That's the risk.
Yes, so it's better to be a little bit of a fuddy-duddy or a fart when you first start than somebody who's just following sensation after sensation, and you're with other people. You know what? That's going to cheer you up and spit you out. And plus, they don't really care, other than the fact that you're conveniently there. Make yourself a substantial person. Start working towards that.
Well, let's get real mundane with it and start using phrases like, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Well, it's true. You have to have an opinion, especially these days. You have to have an opinion. You know,
we live in the age of opinions.
Yeah, better. So you have to be on one side of something, whether you like it or not. You know, pretty much. Okay, so the next question is the one. What was the transformational moment of your life? Do you remember when that transformed you? That's something that made such an impact that made you a different person than you were.
I think because I was doing bands in Florida, and that was fun. It was great. I did bands up here, and that was fun. That was great, and did some tours, did lots of shows, played some big cities, but none of that was I would say transformational. I think that it was the moment I realized like I could be an adult. Like, I think that there's so much.
It's very fun.
No, that's shitty.
No. I absolutely agree. I remember this when this happened to me, because I had been around now. You know, people in different places go to different parts of their life. I don't think you spend a lot of time in the food service industry where you're around a lot of aimless people.
No, I did a stint in a restaurant, but yeah, you've got much more experience than I do.
And I've been around people who are very focused and disciplined, and they were chefs, and they were professionals, and they were managers, and they knew that this is someone else who would decide was going to make their lot in life. They knew that they maybe they didn't focus earlier in life. Whatever they did, now they're doing this, and they're wearing a suit to the job, and they respect the job, and they're trying to make as much money as they can, and see how far they go for the that type of thing. But you also had, I can't tell you how many people I work with who were just the biggest, like you picked up a rock and they were there.
Well, interestingly, like I was living in Florida, and I was a dishwasher in this deli that was not serviced by all the clientele were at least 900 years old. Okay. But I was working in this deli, and the thing that inspired me to go to a studio and record my first solo record was the cook on shift at that evening. I was talking to him about the idea. Yeah, I'm going to record all this music one day, and I'm going to show the world I'm going to be a rock star. And he just looked at me with these like dead eyes of somebody who's just totally over it all. And he said, "You're never going to do that." And I called the studio that evening just to spite it. So yeah, working in the food industry put you in contact with all sorts of folks.
How many? I tried to organize something called the Waiters Race in the 80s when I worked there. Because I wanted to do something that was a little bit more than just showing up and doing this grind. And having this respect and something you'd be involved with. Yeah. So I got involved, and I got involved with the people who were going to do it for MS, I think. And it was going to be just a bunch of different restaurants get someone who worked for them, and they raise money, and someone would hold a tray with eggs and a glass of water or something around 100 yards or whatever. That was the idea. It was supposed to be a big thing. And it got taken away from me. Like it became such a good idea that they didn't need me to do this, and they said okay. And it turned out to be the wives of people who owned legitimate businesses in the restaurant business. They all got their hands on it, and they worked with them, and they just kind of excluded me 1, 2, 3. But it was my idea, and I did it. But one of the wives said to me, because they knew, they said, it's just drunks and thieves. And yeah, that's pretty much what it was. In those days?
Oh, yeah.
So you're dealing with people who aren't focused, and they're never going to change, and they're never going to grow. And when you have you experience, you can go, there's something that's going to tell you, it's time to be an adult. because I'm never going to be an adult if all I do is just be one of these schmucks who sits and goes with these clowns and just goes to some after hours place and goes out drinking and snorting cocaine and sleazing around. They all do. I mean, it's you know, chefs. You know, and look at restaurant Kitchen Confidential. Anthony Bourdain.
I've read it.
Single word of that is the truth. Every single word of that, having worked in kitchens, having worked on the floor, being a bartender, being a manager, you know, I do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, every single word that guy said is the truth. That's why everybody loves it. Everyone knows it's the absolute truth. And that's what it's like. And you can be around people like that who come into work hungover and they're throwing up in a garbage can while they're allegedly doing their job and then, you know, scaling off with as soon as they can because they really don't have it because they're hungover and they're still drunk and they haven't eaten anything, all that stuff. And they're terrible. Like, do you want to want someone who this is a normal thing for you to do or be around all the time? Or do you want to be someone who's responsible and can take control of life and be a little bit more clear-eyed and level-headed and say, listen, you know, for all practical purposes now, we're going to try to put a finite timeline on this and we're going to move forward because this is not where I want to be.
Right. No, you have to have a game plan.
Right. So that was one of those things that defined me in a lot of ways. And I said it was when I decided to be an adult. So I was around people, no, this is no good. You guys are just skidding into the next thing. You're not even trying. You're just showing up and like this is no good. And then stealing a bottle of wine or getting high in the back or screwing somebody in the bathroom. Like, no, come on, you grow that level.
I think
you do that when it's fun and wild and crazy, but you're not fun and wild and crazy. This is just some local rinky-dinky thing, you know.
I was always too scared to try any of that. Like when you met me, I was 22, and I had never had a drink in my life.
I remember your first drink.
Yeah. We were in California.
Yes, sir.
And I'd never done anything risque or that could put me at risk. And so I was this little formless blob that came into the world. And I was like, I could have gone so many different directions. And I managed somehow to not fall for many of the cracks in the sidewalk.
Yeah, and good on you because the people you lose direction instantaneously once you become a thrall to this cheap thrills, basically, and you lose focus and you lose motivation, and you know it assassinates your drive, and you become somebody who is just coasting, and you know you're riding on something that you're not even trying. You know, you're just showing up. I'm like, wait, you shaved today? Isn't that great? You know, tuck the shirt in. Boy, you're a big boy now.
You and I have worked with a few of those.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we worked with some people at NBC, and I used to look and like, oh, God, please stop with the pretension. You're Mr. Brooklyn. Okay, come on. That's the thing I just don't. So anyway, so the next more mundane question, what is it that drives you? What gets you up in the morning? What makes you go every day?
Well, I mean, if I don't get up and go, then the whole facade starts to fall apart. I mean, thankfully I get to work in an industry where I can work from home. So getting up in the morning is just literally just lifting my head a few degrees. But I lead a very cushy life. But like, what gets me up in the morning? I mean, because I have so much to get up and.
But is there one thing that, like, the first thing you leap to mind, like, wait, it's, you know, it's I'm going to go exercise, or like I have a joke to write, or I'm gonna do this thing, and I want to, like, you know, we're moving today, or you know, like, or something. You know,
I wake up every day and I'm like, maybe today is the day that Donald Trump splits his pants and takes a shit right on live television. And, you know, if I got to see that moment, I don't think I have to get up in the morning anymore. Because what is there to live for after that?
Oh, my goodness.
So many things could happen. I think the desire to get up in the day is because there is so much that could happen. Oh, that's terrible. That's not interesting.
No, there's a possibility. You just think that there's a possibility where you're optimistic, and it's something that just makes you feel like, oh, this is what, when you get up, you know, like why I'm getting up and getting dressed. You know, I mean, you know, it's not. Is it not just for a job, or is it, you know, you're going to see somebody, or like you have the constant thing. There's something. There's a stimulation there every day that you live for. You know.
I'm a creature of habit. I love routine, and so I think that I get up and I'm like a robot. I don't like fully become conscious until I'm wherever I'm supposed to be showing up to that day. No, it's not as if I'm waking up and I'm like, oh shit, it's another day until the sweet embrace of death.
Yeah, okay. You know, some people, you think that, like, why, you're so morose and miserable all the time. You know, isn't it anything that gets you up aside from the fact that I have to get up?
I will die at my desk, maybe today.
And I'll be the buzzkill. Why would you want to do that for? No one, and everything is just like, yes, you personalize everything into, like, you know, I'm coughing, I don't feel good, it's, you know, it's awful here. Like, and everything turns into something. Boy, life is so mundane and vulgar for you, you know. And I don't understand. There's something that in your mind that sparks you to be alive and to strive. And
I love food. I'm a breakfast person. Okay. I can't wait till I get to shovel some fresh new garbage into my mouth.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the good question, I think. What is the first thing you want to come to people's minds when they think of you?
Oh my God, I spend so... You know those like moments you're laying in bed and you'll think, oh, what about that embarrassing thing I did 7 years ago?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me?
And you're like, I'm sure that's on everybody's mind still. I'm sure they think about that thing I did 10 years ago. You know,
what was your name again?
I spend way too much time wondering how I come across to other people or what they think of me. You know, I really hope, you know, I want people to think I'm funny or something like that. But
the first thing,
I want them to think that I'm considerate.
Okay. Because
the first thing that I am cognizant of in other people is whether they are aware of people beyond themselves. And you see it in micro actions all day. You see it in how they govern their lives, how they even phrase the thoughts that come out of their empty heads. People that aren't aware that there are 1,000 people right around you, that the thing you're saying is just so obtuse, you should really just shut the fuck up. Okay. I was on a New Jersey Transit train the other day, and I had to sit for an hour and listen to some guy insist there are only two genders, and this whole thing about trans people is garbage. And I just wanted him to, number one, realize that everybody on this train can hear you right now.
Yeah, okay.
And they know you are an idiot. And I want people to just at least walk away from meeting me the first time and be like, oh, he's a good person. He took my worries into consideration. He thought about somebody beyond himself.
That's interesting. You know, it's I don't think it's too far apart from many other people. I mean, I think it's very similar things. I always think I want people to think that I'm genuine. When the first thing I think they want to think of me is I'm for real, you know, and rather than just I'm doing something because it's expedient for the situation I'm in.
Oh, I totally believe you believe everything you're saying all the time.
Yeah, that was very nice of you, sort of. So moving on to even more fun.
Okay.
What is your Zen? What chills you out? What gets you in that place where you just are just...
Well, I mean, do I want to answer this in a way that future employers will...
I'll think about it for a second.
Yeah, I gotta... Okay, let's see. Really pushing that old lady down the subway stairs really gives me a rev. I think is zenning out. I'm an introvert. There are people that get charged up and energized by being around other people and being at social events, and I do them. I'm doing one right now. I consider this to be a social event.
Sure.
I just, my Zen is the time I get to go home, play video games, and just not be responsible for anybody or anything, not have to worry about, because there's so much in life to worry about, and then on top of that we pile on all this extra stuff that nobody actually needs to worry about, but we think we need to, and just not worry about anything. My Zen is, I love to draw. I'll go to
there you go.
I go to drawing classes, and we'll have the model for that session get up there and strut their stuff for a few hours, and I love to, a moment where you get to really study a person, and it's not some weird awkward pause in a conversation. You're supposed to be silent in that moment with that person. You're supposed to be staring at them. You're supposed to be trying to divine out every single physicality that they have. And I think that going and sitting silently with a group of artists and sketching for hours is amazing. I also get a huge amount of relaxation out of sitting around and poorly playing the guitar. Until the landlord is hitting the ceiling with her broom. I think moments where I get to not have to answer to anyone else, and I am sitting there, I am the master of my own domain. I'm either drawing, I'm playing music, I'm rotting my brain on some video games. A chance to escape it all.
Yeah,
is my Zen.
So I have another question. Now we're going to 10 other questions we should do pretty quick.
Okay.
The threshold. How did you know when you arrived there? How did it feel to cross it? What was the significance to you? What did you leave behind? What are you glad you left? And what do you regret leaving behind?
I think that it was, because I've talked about in this conversation,
Thank you, Simon.
It's part of New York. Yeah. It's the authentic experience. I've talked in this conversation about feeling like I am an adult. The task, no, not task. The trials and tribulations of moving away from your home, of not being within 1,200 miles of family, of losing the faith that I grew up with, of leaving jobs behind. And I think that having had all these life experiences, I think that it would be very simple for me to maintain a fiction of the man I have become to the family that is still located several miles away in Florida and Oregon, spread out. And I could maintain this fictionalized life outwardly to them, and as so many people do, lead fictionalized lives. But I think that a threshold for me was leveling with the people that were important to me, and telling them who I had become, and showing off that I was okay, that this forfeiture of so many things that were important to me didn't make me a bad person. The fact that I have a couple of tattoos, that I am not leading the church choir, that I am not lining up to vote the straight Republican ticket. I think that was a threshold, that knowing that I could level with these people and still have a sense of worry about how they were going to accept me, whether their worldview wouldn't be able to incorporate a son that had given up so many things or taken on so many new things. And I've been very happy that my family, they may not understand all the choices I've made. They may not agree with all my ways of thinking, but they have accepted me, and they have embraced me, and they love me. And it would have been, I've heard the story too many times of people that reveal their true selves to their loved ones and their friends and family, and only to receive rebuke and isolation and heartbreak. And I'm very lucky to have been able to do that and walk away from those conversations and know that they were still there for me. I think that was a big threshold, because it takes that weight off of you, because you're trying to live these two different lives, and it's a weight on your shoulder. And knowing that you can just take that weight off and just be who you are and not have to worry. I think that was a huge threshold for me.
And there's no going back. That's one of the things.
Yeah, you can't close that. You can't you can't unring the bell.
Right. And quickly, we'll go through the rest of the other questions and say which ones would you like to answer.
Okay. So which questions?
I don't know. Anything that's not bold. So,
okay.
What would you do all over again? That's another question.
What would I do? No, I do it all the same. All the same.
All the same. So you
never change. What would you? Okay, the turning point in your life, hobbies, avocations. We've talked plenty about that. Any regrets? What do you read?
Who do you read?
Who do you read?
Yeah, who do you read?
I'm a big nerd, and I am perpetually stuck in some sort of science fiction. Right now I'm reading this book called Underground Airlines. Takes place in an imaginary United States where we never had the Civil War, and so slavery still exists in 2018.
Okay.
And it's following how all of that would be realized in a world with smartphones and the internet. And how we would see through all that. But who do I read? I think I focused on that because you introduced me to a book that was very important to me, which was...
That's true.
And it's so cliche.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to feel so dumb the entire time I talk about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Catcher in the Rye.
Hey, the guy knew something.
Yeah. I'm no Mark David Chapman. I'm not going to lose my mind on this book, but...
Whatever you do, never tell anybody anything.
But it was a book that I think I was in my early 20s, and I was very naive and probably emotionally much younger than... so I was probably at the right place emotionally to read that the first time. I remember bumping around on the city bus trying to get through this book that this old dude at work had told me to read, and I loved the book so much.
I was like, old dude. Oh, me.
Yeah, you. And I waited a couple years because I'd done some research on the book, and they're like, you wait a couple years, you grow up, you read it again, and you see this character Holden Caulfield as the piece of shit, snotty-nosed brat that he is. And it's true, but I still got a real big thrill out of the character, even though I know what he is and where he's going wrong. But it's a character that really resonated with me, and it was the first tattoo I ever got across my chest. Big portrait of Mr. Caulfield, and I know that we're still working on getting your first tattoo.
Yeah, I'm a split personality on that one. So
at this point, you just got to do it.
That's the thing, should I or should I?
So yeah, that was that's a good book question. Let's see here. How do you connect with others in a strange environment? So I talked about how I am kind of an introvert, and I would rather spend my time by myself. But life doesn't work out that way. And You're frequently in situations where you're surrounded by people you don't know. And professionally, you have to put yourself out there. You have to go meet people and network and all this stuff that hypes up all my anxieties and I just want to shut down. But my trick to connecting with others in a strange environment is I try and get people to talk about themselves as quickly as possible, because that's everyone's favorite subject. You get them talking about it. I mean, here, you're doing it to me. You get somebody talking about themselves and they'll love you because they get to talk about their favorite thing. And I mean, you try and do that. And it's always been a good secret.
It's not your personality, it's theirs. It's just
right, yeah. And then you get to match them and you play off whatever they're talking about. And it gives you all these anecdotes that you get to later say happened to you. And I don't know. I had this rule. Anytime I heard an anecdote from you 3 times, in my mind, I stole it. And I would then tell it as if it happened to me. Because at that point, you had exaggerated it. You had changed it around tailored it to different audiences. I was like, no, this happened to me. Brad Pitt hit on me in a video store.
That's right.
Let's see.
That's a good one. I like how you remember that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was my first. Let's see here. Is there anything you cannot live without? Is there anything that you would change about yourself? Do you have a mentor? What do you savor? What checklist?
Is there anything you shun?
Anything I shun? I mean, small-mindedness. You just these. I don't want to get too negative in this, but like, we're living in a world now where just our wildest nightmares are front-page headlines, and we have to deal with a huge segment of this country that sees those same headlines and cheers. It just gives it's the fuel to their fire, and you read things that just are so heartbreaking. I cannot abide prejudice and small-mindedness. It's just I have no time for it.
Okay. And I can't agree with you more. And everybody. It's another thing. You become who you are. Some people have to learn. I think some people have a certain amount of bigotry intrinsic in them, and they do better. They overcome it. And most people don't. But I think, if somebody wants to wallow in that, or profit off that, or get some sort of leverage off of that, that's something that really bothers me so much, because you're dividing people and you're excluding reality and facts, and people aren't thinking, and they're just reflectively reacting because you manipulated them.
And we don't have time for that anymore. We've got the environment is going to shit. There's war all over the place. Yeah. We don't have time for this anymore, and these fucking boomers, we're all going to have these personal tragedies when our boomers shuffle off this mortal coil.
It's not even the boomers. It's the people the boomers are my age, who I know personally.
Okay.
Some people, one guy I went to college with, had lunch with him a few years ago, and he's a devout Catholic, but he's a renegade Catholic, and he's a very liberal-minded guy. And he looked at me and he said, "What happened to all the people we went to college with? They all lost their minds." And boy, oh boy, he picked off one person, and very, very financially successful too. And it's cold and it's cruel, and they don't care about anything but money. And they are on that side.
You all grew up around these leaded gasoline engines. I think you all walking around with decades worth of lead poisoning that have rotted you out.
So how about this one?
Okay.
How about this one? This is a good question, I think.
What is the most grievous offense you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis from others? Gets under your skin, rudeness. Okay, so I've had in this day that we are recording, I've had experiences like this where I'm just like psychically screaming at somebody. The first instance, on my commute to work today, the guys that don't move out of the way of the subway doors, and they give you, so they're just standing there with their back to you, the doors are open, and they have allotted you half of the doorway that they have been unable to spread themselves out over. And, there's no point in engaging with them, because all they're going to do is just spew their insanity and ignorance at you, and it's just going to and nobody on the train is going to come to your defense. Nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, you're right, you shouldn't block the door, but they do it. And then I was on my lunch break, and I go to the same place every day for lunch, and I'm sitting there in my spot, I'm looking out the window. Did I mention I'm a creature of habit? I think I did. And I'm sitting there, and I watch a guy double park his van in a one-lane 8th Street. You know how it gets real skinny?
Sure do.
It's one lane. He double parks his van. He gets out. He comes into the restaurant I'm in, waits in line, orders, waits for his food to get prepared. There's another person in that van. I can see them. And so he's avoiding a ticket. So as they're running interference. He gets his food. He comes back out. They sit in the car and eat the entire meal double parked on a one-lane road.
Okay. I understand.
Just people not being aware that there's an entire world around you.
Or not caring.
Or knowing and not caring. I choose to frame it in such a way that it gives me emotional satisfaction to think that they must have such a pathetic and powerless life that this is their opportunity to exert some sort of free will over someone else. And it's so sad that is the level of which you can affect another person.
That's what it's come down to.
You're not even scraping the bottom of the barrel. You're coming up with like chunks of wood from the bottom of the barrel. I was getting off the subway the other day, and it was very crowded, as the subway is. And this woman next to me, I guess she decided that I had bumped into her or something. I may have. I probably had. It was crowded. But we're going down the stairs. She proceeds to start kicking me in the back on our way down the stairs. And I, of course, turn around. I keep moving because there's a whole hell of a lot of people around. I keep moving, but I look back at her and I give her the stink eye, and she says to me, "Payback's a bitch." And all I could say to her is, what kind of pathetic, terrible person are you?
She goes into like leadership meetings or something, right?
Yeah,
no, you can't possibly.
This is my chance. I need to exert this over him. What sad, pathetic life? I tell
you, it's a tit for tat, claw at each other's back type of life you live, and I don't understand what is the benefit. What good does this do for you? And they just don't see life like that, and they live in a different latitude.
We're all roommates in this city, and you have to be a good roommate, or you're going to make it miserable for us all.
Here's another one I like.
Ever fake anything either get away with it, or just get caught, called out, utterly destroyed, detailed? Yeah, let me just lay out my most embarrassing moments as I'm falling asleep, because I like to think, no, I'm not going to...
Did you ever get away with anything?
I was a kid. I'm in middle school. Again, I'm like 12, 13, and I've decided the cool hairstyle is to buzz your head. So you just get the clippers and you just go and you're good to go. But I was terrible at that. It was such a simple task, but I have the attention span of a goldfish, so I can never keep my mind on task. So I'd have the television on as I'm dragging this buzzer over my head. Yeah, and you take the top off, you clean out the hair that's clogged it up.
You think it'll be fine.
Yeah, you put the top back on, only I didn't put the top back on. So I then have this giant bald spot on the top of my head, and I'm just walking around. And of course,
you weren't paying any attention.
No. So I glance in the mirror and I see this giant streak of bald in my head. Little did I know in 2018 that'd be cool, but at the moment it was terrible. And in middle school, everything is so important. It's the meanest part of your life. Everyone will tear you apart. The slightest infraction from deviancy from normal. So I am freaking out. What am I going to do? I have a bald spot in my head. So my genius idea was I was going to take the hair that I had already buzzed off of my head and hairspray it onto the bald spot so that it looked like I had a full head of hair. And I'm sure it looked like I had a massive head wound that had like dried and caked or something. And I remember in the mornings because the hair started growing back in, and sooner or later it was okay. But for several days, I gathered up this mound of hair and just dabbed some on there and sprayed it on.
Oh, that's funny.
And I didn't get away with it because one day it started raining. And so all of the hair that I had hairsprayed onto this bald spot just started trickling down the side of my head, covering me. And it was so awful.
Was that on the way to or from school?
I believe it was midday, like
no, it's
lunch.
even worse. You have the whole rest of the day.
Because you show up looking, well, I mean, I'm sure I look like a freak with this hair. But then leaving school, a completely different, covered in your own shed hair.
With the hairspray stuck on.
Yes. Oh, it's awful.
Okay, so what's your favorite weather?
I love a rainy day. Okay. Anything that gives me a legitimate excuse to stay home. Wonderful. I don't have to feel guilty about missing out on anything. Oh, it's raining. I guess I can't go to that thing that you invited me to. I just can't do it.
Oh my! I know someone who's I'm married to who thinks like that.
A good rainy day.
Is there anything that comes effortlessly to you, which is considered impressive to others?
Yes, I have always been able to draw, and I'm very uncomfortable bragging about myself, but I can draw very well.
I've seen your drawings.
And
I will attest to that.
It was something, I got it from my father. He's not ever done much with this talent, but he showed me his ability, and somehow, whether it's genetics or just wanting to be like Dad, I threw myself into it, and I've always been able to draw, and I love to do it. And it's something that I'll do, and I kind of forget that I can do this more than the average person can. And I'll do it, and everyone will start saying, "Oh my goodness, look at this!" Oh, and it's very uncomfortable in the moment because I don't want to be the center of attention. That's not true. I love it.
But not when you're drawing, because you have to be a little bit abstract,
right?
Attached.
And so I've always been able to. I love to draw people. I'm not big into landscapes or still lifes. I think I mentioned earlier that I love to go to like nude model drawing sessions and just capturing the human form. And it comes in so many varieties. We get the young and the old, men and women, overweight, skinny as a rail, amputees, handicapped people, and you get all the varieties of human expression. And there is so much there to capture that I don't think I'll ever be done.
Okay, I think we I don't know if that's 20.
You know what? It felt like 20.
I have one. My last question, I think. I should
Okay.
ask. What is your most treasured possession? That's a simple key.
Most treasured possession. You know, something that if I lost, I would be just devastated.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing you love the most, the thing you own that you have, that's nearest and dearest to you. That doesn't not even mean anything to anybody else. It doesn't have to be like a piece of gold or something.
Sure.
You know, it's just.
I got it, I must have been 8 or 9. I got as a gift, and I don't even remember who gave it to me. I don't remember the occasion, but I received this horseshoe, and I have kept this horseshoe. It has been hung over the front door of every place I have ever lived. It is the first thing I put up when I move into a new place. It is the last thing I take down. I'm not a superstitious person. I don't actually believe this thing is bestowing any luck upon me, but it is something that has stuck with me over thousands of miles, over decades of years, whatever. It has stuck with me for a long time. I think that if I ever lost it, I think I'd feel very, very scared. And I kind of got to thinking about that a couple of years ago, and I went so far as to get it tattooed on me.
That?
So now I have this horseshoe right on my left arm, and it says "Good luck," and
it's upside down.
And it's up, so yeah, you got to keep the luck in.
Sure.
So I think that even if I ever did lose this item, its avatar is right here embedded in my skin, so I can't lose it.
That says a lot. Well, Keith, that's great. I think that's pretty fantastic. It's been a hell of a time talking with you. I found out things about you that I never knew, and other things that your point of view are very funny.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody again real soon. Have a great day. Do I say peace out now?
Yeah, that's the cool thing. That's what the kids are saying. I heard some kids on the street saying peace out to everybody.
Peace out to everybody.
Everybody.
Okay, to everybody, peace out.